So here we are again at the camera raw video for some finalization. It's been a long journey here. This is the final image before the camera raw. Normally, what I do is I hide all the folders except for the render one because I want to check, the before and after, and it was actually a good job, a good result. What to do now? We have single layer with the entire image inside because I press Ctrl Alt Shift E. And what I want to do is I want to transform this layer into a smart object. And the reason is now we are going to apply a camera raw. And camera raw is a filter, which means that if we apply a filter to a smart object layer, then it will be a smart filter. That means we can go back inside the camera raw if something is not okay, if something if we don't like something, and we can still change it. But more than that, if we have a smart filters, then the smart filters will be saved together with the smart object. And that means that if in case we want to change something behind that, I don't know, the position of the bush, we can hide the smart object, fix whatever we want to fix, and then we create another stamp, another smart object, and just drag and drop the smart filters from one layer to the other. So why we are doing the smart object? Long story short, because now we are going to do a camera raw filter, and if something has to change, we can just copy the camera raw filter, and we can just make the work only once. Okay. So now that we have a smart object, we go here, filters, camera raw. And the camera raw is quite amazing because we can do a lot of stuff in here. And we can also see like a before and after shot. So let's start here from the basic stuff. And if you click in here, you can see basically the before and after. And you can also click inside the scene here and zoom in to see the details, okay? If you double click, you go back to 100%, so to fit basically the image inside the canvas here. And you can see here before and after. So what to do here? Now, let's say this. I have no magic formula. I have no, magic numbers to tell you, okay, let's put this in here, let's put this in there. There's no such a thing. You need to find your own values. You need to, pick your own numbers and, do whatever you feel like you need to do, okay? But anyway, what I'm going to say is in this basic palette here, I go by eyes. So I look at the image in its, like in the overall, picture. And I try to, just move slightly this, sliders here about the exposure, about the contrast, and then you have highlights, shadows, white and blacks. And, it's like having a curve and, deciding, okay, for example, here, highlights, you see, I make highlights brighter or darker. And because we are working on a 16-bit, we have way more chance to get something cool, than a 8-bit image, because we have hidden informations. And so we can do this without ruining the entire image, okay? But again, I do this really like looking at the image and see, okay, I like this more than this one, so I keep it. Some of these sliders here are repeated then inside the camera raw, because for example, you can see here highlights, shadows, white and blacks, and then you open curve and you have again highlight, lights, dark and shadows, which are the same. You see, it's basically you're just moving a curve in different positions or for different values, okay? Nothing weird. Let's go back to basic for a second. Here we have vibrance and saturation. Now, saturation, of course, brings you to crazy colors, while vibrance, is a kind of a soft version of saturation. So normally what I do is I go a little bit down with saturation, a little bit go up with vibrance, because I feel like that in some way this is more natural. This is something that we get the same saturation at the end, but with the more realistic, I would say, strength. Okay, and then we have these crazy sliders here, which are different for every version of Photoshop. But the clarity is there from ages, and it basically contrasts the borders of your image, creating like such a like an HDRI effect that you can see in some photos. Now this is sometimes just as a very very low amount of this helps to define areas a little bit better. But again, I mean, this is really something that you should use little by little, and do not exaggerate with this, because if you exaggerate, you can immediately see that it's too much. Okay, the texture is basically the same, but it makes it basically sharp the entire image, and I would stay away from this, because I mean, once upon a time, okay, like years ago, I was used to sharp everything. I really loved that. But then, taking pictures with a real camera, I realized that nothing is really very sharp when you take a photo, when you take a real photo. And since we are doing photorealism, you shouldn't sharp the image at all, I would say. On the other side, you should try to get some deep of field, some blur in the image. And try yourself, go and take any magazine, any newspaper, I don't know, and look for advertising or of some, I don't know, interior, some products, and look at the picture. You will see there's a very few areas in that are pretty like sharp to the pixel. Everything else is like a little bit blurred, and it's also a technique on 3ds Max to render with a bigger resolution, and an area filter to like 4 in order to blend everything together in a very very blurred way, and it's basically in a very smooth way. So when then you at the end you will basically scale down the image to the normal resolution, you get anyway a little bit sharper, something a little bit sharper, but everything is blended together in a more realistic way, because you're like mimicking the camera, the lens of the camera, which is not perfect anyway. So I would stay away from this. Okay, or maybe you can I don't know, use this texture to make something sharper and then mask it, and then keep only the focus area very sharp. But then you would need two two different camera raw. Curve, something I normally just don't use it that much, because it does exactly what I can do in the basics. And then details again, I'm not using the sharpening tool here, because as you can see, it's really strong. It's really really strong, and so it's the first things that rings a bell for me when I see everything too sharp. It's okay, that's a render. That's not how photos behaves. And if you want to use this, you can also use the noise reduction, and the noise reduction, you see, will lose a little bit of details too. So this is basically compensating the sharpening. And sometimes I do that because it feels like more like a photo, because I lost a lot of details, and at the same time it looks more contrasted. So I don't know, it feels exactly what happens with the camera lens. But this is pure this is a game. Okay, this is like a joke. So if you want to try yourself, but I'm not suggesting you to do it on images. Okay. Anyway, here color mixer. This is powerful. This is powerful because this really can change the game, I would say, because if you change the color, the image will take another look, I would say. So in here, you can change the hue, which means that you can take, I don't know, something which is orange and you can make it more yellow, or, to the right, it goes green, and or to the left and it goes red, as you can see. So for example, I don't know, I want my green to be more yellow, so I can go here in the green and go on the left. And now you see it was like a pine green, and now is more yellow, and I love it. I like it more. So this is the hue will change the color, saturation will change saturation, of course. So now I will make my green stronger, so green yellow, you see I get more saturation in there. And you see, this is something. This is very powerful because you can control each single color saturation in a very nice way. And then you have luminance, which is the brightness, and so you can decide, okay, to make, I don't know, blue like brighter, or I mean, because of it's in the sky, so it should be overexposed and so on. So you see, you can make it brighter and so on. So it's up to you what to do here. I would not change this value too much because you can have some mistakes. You can create some errors. But it's definitely a tool I would use in the Camera Raw. Color grading, this is a little bit more, crazy. I'm not using it because you see, in 1 second, you can, completely ruin what you're doing. And so it's also true that you can, select a blending. So how much this will actually blend with the image, but I don't know. It doesn't work really well, and I'm not a fan of this. So in this case, I would jump this completely. If you want to reset anything here, you double click and you get back to the original value. Okay, and then you have optics. If you want like distortion, if you want a little bit of vignetting all around, the corners, you can have this one. And you have geometry if you want to correct the I would say distortion of the lens. But in this case, we are not doing this on a photo, so the render is already perfect in that kind of things, so we don't need that. And then you have grain, if you want some grain. I mean, grain, so the noise on top of the image, is not, it sounds weird that we could add grain, so noise over the entire picture, because that's the exact thing we are trying to avoid while we are rendering. We are trying to not get any noise. But actually, it's something that people used to do in, for example, illustrations. For like, I don't know, video games, for example. I remember I've seen a lot of advertising, and if you zoom in, you can see a little bit of grain. And that is kind of a sort of way to say to people, stop zooming in, stop zooming, because this is the end of the picture. There's nothing more. You should stop zooming in. And because when you zoom in and you finally found some noise, your brain goes, okay, this is the end of the picture. This is the end of the image. I cannot, zoom in anymore. And, I found myself doing it sometimes, especially when the images goes on I don't know, a big, I don't know, something like a billboard or an equal object, which is pretty big. And, people, kind of get close to it to look at the image. But if they get close to it, they found this kind of noise. And so they say, okay, I'm too close to the picture. Okay, and I should like do a few step back to look at it in a proper way. Normally, grain should go only on, it should be more visible on dark areas, but it's up to you. Okay, it's up to you, and don't worry too much. Anyway, now that Oops, sorry. I reset for mistake. Now that we are here, you see vignetting is in here and also in optics. Okay. There's a few differences because in here in effects you have more options. You can control vignetting a little bit more than in optics. As you can see, there is more sliders, more controls. I don't know why, but it's like that. Okay. So feel free to use the one that you like the most. Remember that vignetting is something that you can do even after if you want to, control it in a different, on a separate layer, because you can just do a vignetting on a white layer and then put that layer into multiply blending mode. Okay. Just in case you want to do vignetting but keep it in a different. Why you should do that? Because maybe you want to delete vignetting here where you have, I don't know, a very bright sky, okay, while this one does vignetting everywhere. And then calibration, this is pretty useless for me. I never use it. And but sometimes you can get very crazy result, crazy colors, and maybe it gives you some ideas on what to do in the next image, or how to handle with colors in your next artwork. I don't know, it's just it's just crazy for me. Maybe I'm overusing it, of course, but I feel like that if I work on the color mixer first, I don't need this kind of control. Okay, maybe this works better if you are working on a 32-bit or I don't know a 16-bit image, a 16-bit photo, not a render. Okay. Anyway, I'm done. So let me do a little bit more of orangey here. So and I want this to go a little bit more orangey. So I'm going here, here, and here. Okay, good. And then saturation, a bit more saturated. Okay, I like this very much. As you can see, is now different. The result, I mean, it's like dawn, or the sun is very low, so I like to have a little bit more of orangey in my image. Now, if you like what you've done and you want to save it as a preset, you can go here and you can create a new preset. So the next time you are into the camera raw, you can come here and search for the preset and apply it immediately, or you can just press OK. And because we have a smart object, then the camera raw filter is in here as it's been saved as within the camera, within the smart layer, I would say. So next time you want to do this and you say, okay, I made a mistake, you hide this one, you fix the mistake, and then you again here, Ctrl+Shift+E, you make a new layer, smart object again, and then you can just drag and drop the filters from this layer to the next, and it will work. Now I will save, I will wait this to save in backup and I show you. Okay, here we go. And we have the new camera raw in the new smart object if we drag and drop over it. And so we don't have to do the camera raw again, because we can just pass the filters from one layer to the other. And here we go with the final image. And again, if you want, you can go down with your opacity and blend the new result with the old one.